Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show on July 4th, 2021. It's Independence Day, and thank you for joining us on the holiday. As always, if you'd like additional weather information, you can go to weather.gov/Alaska or call the recorded phone line message there at 1-800-472-0391. And if you have anything you wish to pass along to me, reports, photos, ask an interesting question, peter.chan@noaa.gov. Well, looking at what we got going on here are the headlines. Fire danger remains highest across east central and southeast portions of the interior. And tomorrow we're going to get some windier, dry conditions impacting the Copper River Basin and the eastern Alaska Range. I'll talk about that in just a moment. This broad area of low pressure that's been sitting over the Bering Sea is going to slowly, the center of circulation, work its way up toward the Seward Peninsula by midweek. And that's going to allow for cooler and wet weather to spread eastward across the state, especially into the interior and south central areas as we go through the early and middle part of the week. But getting back now to our fire weather concerns, we have red flag warnings in effect for the eastern Alaska Range along the Richardson Highway, including Delta Junction from noon until midnight Monday, and then also for the Copper River Basin around Gulkana, and that'll be in effect from noon until 8 p.m. And we have a combination of windy conditions and dry air in place. We're going to see south winds gust 35 upwards to near 45 miles an hour in some cases. So that's going to make for extreme fire danger. Refrain from any outdoor burning, campfires, and certainly hold off on those fireworks because that area there is under the gun for fire starts. Otherwise, here's where we have the greatest fire danger based on today's fire weather index, and you can see east central areas and also down toward the southeast. The other day, we had the extreme conditions there in the Copper River Basin. So again, that's the reason why the Copper River has been included in that red flag warning for Monday afternoon and evening. So looking at the satellite imagery, well, what's really new? Not a whole lot, especially those of you in the west. It's been a cloudy and wet period for a long time, and you see circulations. The primary low and elongated area low pressure extends from north of the western Aleutians out across the Bering to on up towards St. Lawrence Island, just southwest of there. And that feature is going to slowly kind of consolidate and work its way northeastward and just kind of sit and pinwheel over the Seward Peninsula here as we head through the early middle part of this coming week. And what happens is we get waves of low pressure just kind of rotating within the southwest circulation in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, coming across the eastern half of the Aleutians up through the Alaska Peninsula into the southwest and then spinning back up along the entire west coastal areas. And what's going to happen is the big ridge, the warm ridge that has been sitting over the southeast is going to begin to break down. Right now the marine layer is offshore there out over the Gulf, but as a result, it's going to start to push moisture back in across the interior this week. And you can see there's one wave of moisture coming up now, just lifting to the east-northeast of Dillingham and Bethel, and another one approaching Dutch Harbor on Alaska. That's the next trough that'll be working its way northeastward and bringing additional rainfall. But you can see across the southeast, it's been a really nice day today. Juneau as well as Ketchikan has seen periods of sunshine with temperatures on this 4th of July in the upper 60s to lower 70s, and one of the warmer spots, Heights, will likely reach low to mid 70s, at least has that potential coming up here as we go through the day tomorrow. Now the warmest day tomorrow for Monday this week for east central areas will be tomorrow, as temperatures in some areas will get back up into the 80s. I'll show you that when we get to our temperature forecast map. But here we have the weather map today. Thermal low trough across northwest Canada up into east central areas. There has been some smoke around Fairbanks as a result of the wildfires in vicinity. And then further west, just areas of rain and rain showers across much of the western third of the state as these troughs of low pressure lift northeastward. And there's that low pressure back toward the Bering Sea just north of the western Aleutians. And as we go through tonight and early tomorrow morning, we'll continue to see that rain, another wave pushing northeastward up along the Alaska Peninsula, beginning to move up toward Cook Inlet. And that will overspread south central areas as we head through tomorrow afternoon and evening, even pushing some rain up into the Anchorage area. And this is going to cause more of a wet pattern across much of the interior and south central areas here as we head through the midweek. Now, there could be an isolated thunderstorm pop-up along the Alcan border for Monday afternoon, and certainly that could be the case again on Tuesday. The ridge of high pressure that's been anchored there in the Gulf and just south of the Gulf, that's going to tend to break down a bit and allow some of this moisture to work further inland. As you can see, by Tuesday, pretty widespread chance of precipitation, either areas of rain or showers will be the case there throughout much of the middle and lower Yukon Valley, extending from the Alaska Range back through the Alaska Peninsula. Now let's take a look at some temperatures. Lows Monday morning will generally be lower 50s, though could be 57 there at Ketchikan. And back toward the west, readings generally mid 40s to around 50 degrees across all south central areas. So on Monday afternoon, it's going to warm back up around 70. Haines, Skagway, as well as Juneau, and Ketchikan could be back up around or a little bit above 70. Back further west, 74 at Glen Allen, along with those breezier conditions with the red flag warnings in the Copper River Basin. And then as the clouds thicken up, temperatures will be hard-pressed to get much above 60 there at Talkeetna, as well as Anchorage, and everybody south and west staying in the 50s with areas of rain spreading northeastward. And then on Tuesday morning, lows will generally be in the lower 50s there across the southeast, and upper 40s to lower 50s across south central areas, with cloud cover areas of rain. Temperatures on Tuesday across much of the south central areas will only be in the upper 50s to lower 60s at best. Across, though, the southeast panhandle could be 73 or so at Ketchikan, so enjoy that warm day. Across the far north slope, we see readings overnight down into the 30s, and then temperatures overnight lows Monday morning into the lower 50s, the Yukon Valley. It's going to start to warm up. Warmest day of the week for east central areas, 81 there at Fort Yukon, 84 at Eagle Village. And I want to thank Mary at Talk for reporting. She gave us a couple temperature reports back on Thursday. 85 degrees, that's the warmest they've been at Talk so far this summer. They were 83 on Friday, so we got a little more warmer weather to go here just to kick off the week on Monday. And then lows again, mid-30s, around 40 along the Arctic coast, generally upper 40s to lower 50s along the Yukon River. And temperatures on Tuesday won't be quite as warm, with the cloud cover increasing there, back down into the 70s in the east central areas along the Yukon River, and readings generally in the 50s across the west. And taking a look at the southwest peninsula, we are looking for lows Monday morning to be in the upper 40s to around 50 degrees, generally mid 40s as we extend out along the Alaska Peninsula in through the Aleutians. And for Monday afternoon, extensive cloud cover, areas of rain or scattered rain showers, and temperatures will be confined to the 50s for highs as a result region-wide. Wish I could give you a little more sunshine, but there's a little bit of hope, I think, coming up here, at least for some drier weather in the extended outlook. And Tuesday morning, we're looking for temperatures to be down into the mid-upper 40s across much of the region, with extensive cloud cover throughout the southwest, and then highs hard-pressed to get much out of the 50s here even on Tuesday, and that's going to be the trend here as we go through much of the upcoming week. So, got some time to talk about the extended temperature and precipitation outlooks. Notice again, if you look in the lower right of your screen, you'll see the brick red just indicating that massive high pressure ridge causing the heat wave, just drought conditions, extreme fire conditions setting up there across the western United States. Meanwhile, we do anticipate July 10th through the 14th, Alaska will see potential for some below normal temperatures across south central areas and the southeast panhandle, near normal temperatures in the north and west. And at least there is some hope that we could get some drier conditions there setting up in the southwest toward mid-month. Be nice for you guys to finally dry out. A little wetter up there along the northwest Arctic coast. But this is one of these patterns that takes a while to break down. That's why it's been so persistent here for the past few weeks or so. And again, this is just going to slowly evolve as that low pressure that's currently sitting out over the Bering begins to consolidate and then lifts. The circulation lifts northeastward, resides near the Seward Peninsula. And then there are hints by next weekend that it's going to slowly drop southeastward and reside back just south of the Alaska Peninsula along the coast there in the North Pacific. and that's what's going to allow for some drier conditions to set up there across the southwest portion of the state and even mid areas of the south for a change south of the Yukon River. So those are the types of things we look at in the longer wave pattern. Hopefully it'll help you out with any planning you may have, because I know some people like to get some certain summertime projects done with some construction, painting, things like that. So we'll keep you posted as that continues to unfold.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Here's your flying weather for planning purposes heading out on Monday or Tuesday. Monday morning across much of the interior, we'll see VFR conditions with areas of IFR throughout the northern Gulf and along the Pacific side of the Kodiak Island, the Alaska Peninsula, and then areas of IFR up through the southwest and west coast, and also along the Arctic coast. For Monday afternoon, you can see a few isolated storms develop along the Yukon and Tanana River valleys in the east central areas, and areas of IFR continuing along mainly the open waters there of the northern Gulf, along the Kenai, Prince William Sound, and also up along the west arm of the Alaska Range back through much of the southwest, west central areas, including the Seward Peninsula and just off and along the Arctic coast. And on Tuesday morning, we'll continue to see areas of IFR across the northern Gulf, including Prince William Sound, the eastern Kenai, the western arm of the Alaska Range, and then back through western areas, including Norton Sound, the Kuskokwim and Yukon deltas. And then on Tuesday afternoon, still could see an isolated storm pop up along east central areas there, especially through the Yukon and Tanana River valleys. And IFR conditions along the coast, Yakutak on over toward Prince William Sound, as well as the southwest on up through Norton Sound and portions of the Seward Peninsula and just off of the Arctic coast. And again, over much of the Bering central western Aleutians. Past conditions on Monday, Hanatuvik should enjoy VFR conditions throughout the day. That'll also be the case at Adigan. Heading south, westward, Lake Clark and Merrill will start out VFR in the morning but become IFR. Some of that moisture lifts northward across the region on Monday. And same thing at Rainy Pass, look for VFR in the early morning becoming IFR, as well as at Windy Pass, VFR becoming IFR, as we expect that moisture to interact with the western arm of the Alaska Range. Further east, Isabel should stay VFR, though there could be a few isolated thunderstorms pop up with the daytime heating as you fly northeastward from the north entrance in the afternoon and early evening. Mentasta also will see VFR conditions on Monday, though again a few isolated storms could develop in the afternoon and evening as you fly to the north and northeast of the north entrance of Mentasta. Down around Tanita, VFR conditions will become MVFR. And then for Portage, look for VFR conditions to become generally IFR, especially the east entrance and Prince William Sound. The western entrance should see VFR become MVFR in the afternoon. And then Chilkoot and White should generally have VFR conditions hold throughout the day on Monday. Freezing levels are generally above 10,000 feet along the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, the Kenai, in through east central areas and much of northwest Canada, as well as the southeast panhandle. Lowest freezing levels are around or below 6,000 feet to near 4,000 feet out over the Bering in association with a broad area of low pressure. And that's where the best potential of icing will be in the southwest, including the Alaska Peninsula, on up through the Seward Peninsula, and all along the west coast, generally between 8 and 14 to 8 and 16,000 feet, extending westward through the central Bering. Jet stream level winds, we have a low pressure, that broad area of low pressure showing up all the way to 30,000 feet there over the Bering, and ahead of it, strong westerly winds, a jet core upwards of 120 and 30 knots extending down along the Alaska Peninsula into the Aleutians. Dropping down to 9,000 feet, we see that low sitting out there out over the Bering Sea with winds westerly out over the tip of the Alaska Peninsula upwards to 50 knots, and then turning ahead of it 35 to 40 knots across much of the mainland. And then dropping down to 3,000 feet, we continue to see that low pressure circulation there west of Nunavak Island, around St. Matthew, and winds across the Alaska Peninsula out of the west upwards to 40 knots, as well as including the eastern Aleutians. And turbulence, well, the best potential for some turbulence During the day on Monday, will be a little pocket up there in the northwest, surface to 4,000 feet east of Wainwright and Point Hope, and then also down across the southwest, including the tip of the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern Aleutians, surface to 4,000 feet. And then as we go up into the Alaska range, we'll see the potential for some turbulence between the surface and 8,000 feet. So that does it for your flight weather. Please have a safe trip if you are planning to head out early in the week.
Hello again, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder with the National Weather Service with another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. And joining me today are not just one, but two people, both with the last name Stevens, which is even more fun, but no relation. We have Eric Stevens from Gina and George Stevens, who is a mechanical engineering student from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Awesome. And today you guys brought a really cool toy, or I should say tool, with you. It's a sandbox, but why are you guys working on a sandbox?
Well, it's part of our senior design project, and we were approached by EPSCoR to build this for them. They had a proof of concept that they developed about a year ago, I think, and they wanted a more robust version that they could pack onto a plane and take places, and it's a handy learning tool for kids and adults.
So you're a mechanical engineering student. You've built a traveling sandbox for the experimental program to stimulate competitive research, EPSCoR, and Gina's facilitated this. But why do we need a traveling sandbox?
Well, the prototype was such a big hit that they decided they wanted another one, actually two, that that would be easier to travel with, possibly marketable even.
Okay, so this is a traveling sandbox that's got a lot of bits and pieces and a computer hooked up to it. What is the computer doing with the sand?
The computer actually uses a Kinect sensor to read the topography of the sand or the shape of the sand, and then the computer translates that into information which it projects using a projector onto the sand, showing topographical lines and which is representative of the shape of the sand.
Okay, so this is a live mapping tool?
Yeah. It's interactive. As you're moving your hands through it, it is actively following and changing the lines to fit what you're doing.
That sounds like something I could have in my backyard.
Yep.
It'd be a lot of fun. So you guys had to change the design a little bit to make this more Alaska-fied, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, how'd you do that?
Well, the original was made out of basically lumber and Simpson strong tie type stuff, and we rebuilt it to make it lighter and basically more transportable. We can pack it down to a fairly small size, and it can be loaded onto a plane and flown anywhere in the state.
Which you guys did today. And you have plans to take this in other places of Alaska, right?
Yep, we're actually going to be headed down to Homer with it later today.
Okay, very good. Eric, how does this fit into science learning around Alaska?
Well, you know what? I think it is a tool and it is a toy. And it brings out a smile from an 8-year-old and the smile from a 48-year-old with that inner 8-year-old wanting to get out. The sandbox, it's an interactive learning tool that teaches us how topography in the 3 dimensions is related to, say, a 2-dimensional map. More about that later. Just like George was saying, it's got a Kinect sensor, not just for video games anymore. It can sense out the lay of the land there, feeds that information in the computer identifies that, sends a signal to a projector to send topographic lines to map over that lumpy ground. So you get a 3-dimensional topo map out of it. And my favorite thing about it, this is the thing that stops people at the trade show, they stop at your booth and don't leave, is that you run your hand through that sandbox and it responds in real time. It remaps the topography as you get to be Mr. Tectonic Plate Drifter there. You can make things how you want. Well, what if we made a really high mountain here and a low valley there and the lines adjust to what you did? It's a learning tool because it shows you that connection between these 2-dimensional topo lines and what's really out in Alaska. And Alaska's a place with all kinds of topography. You know, we're from the Great Plains where topo maps tend to be just like blank pieces of paper, but Alaska is particularly gifted in this regard, and this tool helps us, I think, learn more about our state, really.
Absolutely. And so this is going to enhance STEM learning, the science, technology, engineering, and math, in many different locations around Alaska then. This would be something that kids and teachers can get their hands on.
It sure is. And I mentioned the, it's like flypaper at a booth that, or at the Science Potpourri when we had Greg's original version of this sandbox. And that one was made out of scraps of wood, and it was a prototype. But even that one, before it had some of the refinements that George and crew have made for this newer, upscaled, maybe a 2.0 version of the sandbox, even that one was so attractive to people. It just demonstrated that this has potential to be a learning tool, an outreach tool, an education tool that now is portable and can go places in Alaska. Of course, there's only one sandbox, can't be everywhere at once, but hopefully it gets out there, gets the word out about EPSCoR and what science is being done here for Alaskans.
All right, that sounds really interesting, and I can't wait to get my hands in the sand and try this out for myself. We're going to demonstrate this here in our next segment of Alaska Weather Facts, but before we go, we want to remind you that EPSCoR, which is a new acronym for me now, but I'm going to remember this because you can follow them on Facebook and Twitter, and I invite you to do that. Alaska EPSCoR is also something that facilitates science learning at the University of Alaska around the state, and that stands for Experimental Program to Stimulate Competitive Research. So check that out, and make sure you tune in tomorrow because we're going to have the next version where we actually get our hands in the sand and check out how this works and demonstrates that topography. So for now, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder with this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, and we'll see you again next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back on this Independence Day, and as we take a look at the sea ice edge, we see the lower or southern portion of the Chukchi Sea is pretty open. There's still a little bit of ice that remains in Kotzebue Sound, and that will continue to rapidly melt here as we head through the upcoming week. As far as across the far north along the Arctic coast, the ice there continues to break up, and we will expect that trend here to continue as we dive deeper now into the month of July. And looking at Monday's marine forecast for the southeast inner waterways, winds will be northwest 10 to 15 knots, Petersburg down through Ketchikan with waves 2 or 3 feet. Southerly winds up to 20 knots, Lynn Canal with 4-footers there north of Juneau. And then along the Gulf Coast, marine layers sitting out there, and winds out of the northwest 15 to 20 knots, swells 6 to 8 feet. And a little less as you get west of Yakutat, winds 10 to 15 knots and swells around 4 or 5 feet. For Tuesday, inner waterways winds will be still southwest or northwesterly rather, and the southern portion of the southeast there, 15 knots, waves a few feet, but south winds up to 25 knots and 4 to 5 foot waves there in Lynn Canal. And then along the coast, winds northwest Sitka to Craig, 20 knots, swells 7 feet. And then onshore flow from the west or southwest there around 10 knots at Yakutat with waves running 4 to 5 feet. Across south central areas, we are looking for temperatures, or I should say winds and waves, to be predominantly from the south-southwest across the Gulf, the open waters of the Gulf, and waves right around 4 feet. For Prince William Sound, southeasterly winds 10 knots, waves a couple of feet. And as we go down the length of the Cook Inlet at the entrance, we'll see southeast winds channeling to 30 knots and waves upwards to 8 feet, but trailing off to only a couple of feet there north of the Kenai. And then for Tuesday, look for generally southwest winds in the Gulf there, around 15 knots, waves 4 to 5 feet. Southeasterly winds across Prince William Sound, waves a few feet. And then across the Cook Inlet with southwest winds, a little better fetch coming up through the midsections area there as you go up north of Homer, and waves anywhere from about 4 to as high as 8 feet. And for Monday, across the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island, winds on the Pacific side will be south-southwest, 25 to near 30 knots, strongest south of Sand Point, where the waves could be upwards around 8 feet. And on the Bering side, south-southwest winds 20 to 25 knots and waves 3 to 6 feet. And then for Tuesday, generally southwest winds across the region, 20 to 25 knots on the Pacific side, 7 to 9 foot swells, and 6 to 7 feet on the Bering side. Across the Aleutian chain on Monday, winds will be southwesterly around 25 knots for the eastern half, with swells around 9 feet on the Pacific side and 6 to 8 feet on the Bering side. And then as we go out to the west there, 5 to 6 footers with westerly winds 20 to 25 knots. And on Tuesday, winds will generally be west-southwest around 25 knots again, and waves 7 to 9 feet on the Pacific side as well as on the Bering side. And going up along the southwest coast, out towards St. Paul and St. George, winds will be from the southwest 25 knots, swells around 7 feet. And as we go up along the coast north of Nunavik Island, we are looking for offshore southeasterly flow around 15 knots and waves 3 to 4 feet. On Tuesday, circulation of low pressure up there near St. Lawrence Island. Ahead of it, southwest winds, Nunavik Island down towards St. Paul and St. George, 15 to 20 knots and waves 5 to 7 feet. And then as we go into the day on Monday, up along the northwest coast, Seward Peninsula, offshore flow from the southeast, 10 to 15 knots, waves running a few feet from the Bering Strait on up into the lower Chukchi Sea. But ice continues to hold there along, though it is breaking up along the Arctic coast with winds out of the east at 15 to 20 knots. And for Tuesday, look for easterly flow to continue across the Arctic coast at around 20 knots. And as we go down the northwest coast, northeast winds 15 knots, waves 3 feet or so in the lower Chukchi Sea. And onshore flow there, the west side of the Seward Peninsula there, just south of the Bering Strait at 15 knots and waves running about 4 feet. So low pressure is going to remain anchored there out over the Bering, though it is going to expand and kind of consolidate up toward St. Lawrence Island as we go into Tuesday, Monday and Tuesday, but by Wednesday it should be situated, the circulation over the Seward Peninsula. And here's the way the weather map looks on Tuesday. We continue to see spokes of low pressure troughs rotate around that low, bringing waves of rain on across the Alaska Peninsula into the southwest and south central areas of the state. Have a good night, everybody, and happy 4th of July.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.